let me introduce the chair of the Manzanar Committee, Bruce Embrey.
And, you know, today's pilgrimage, we honor and pay our respects to our elders. We celebrate the fact that we had resilience and the tenacity to last 50 years. And that's the nice part of the pilgrimage. But my other job today, unfortunately, is to draw the parallels of what is happening today with what happened to our families. And our pilgrimage today is taking place in the midst of challenging and, in fact, dangerous times. The current administration, the President of the United States, have manufactured a non-existent national emergency. They speak of an invasion, a so-called invasion, by people who come from other cultures. And this hysteria that emanates from the White House is being whipped up by white supremacist groups and being codified into xenophobic policies by our own government. Honestly, there is no difference from the actions of our government today and the actions of our government in 1942. Children are being separated from their families and placed in cages in our southern border, just as in 1942, when our families were ripped apart and our Oji-sans were sent far away. For decades, no one spoke of the trauma of the forced removal or the incarceration of our families. No one spoke of the horrific injustices that the Nikkei community endured during World War II. But something changed 50 years ago when Warren, my mother, Jim, and Mo, and others came to Manzanar to discover and reflect on what happened here in 1942. Back in 1969, simply remembering what happened was an act of resistance. When they returned home, they decided that they had to do more than just venture, march, run, or walk to Manzanar to remember. They had to tell the world of what happened here. They decided that they had to make sure our country would remember so that what occurred to their families and our families would never happen again. Their journey to tell our story and to demand justice from our government helped to galvanize our community. The pilgrimages became a place to talk story and to confront what my mother called the monstrous and traumatic event. In fact, pilgrimages became a place to heal. The pilgrimages rapidly became a site for all justice-minded people to gather and to make demands for redress and reparations. There were calls for solidarity with others who've suffered similar experiences, such as the occupation in Wounded Knee in 1973 when the Manzanar Committee sent a message of solidarity to the Native brothers and sisters at Wounded Knee. There were calls for an end to the Vietnam War, and these calls echoed off the sand surrounding this lone cemetery monument. So the pilgrimages were more than just about Manzanar. They were, and they are today, a place where our community can gather to support those who are facing essentially the same struggles and the same persecutions that we had faced in 1942. This is important for us to think about, because in 1942, no one stood up for our community. No one outside the Nikkei community demonstrated or protested the forced removal. There were no editorials. There were no protests. There were no vigils. No one stood on the floor of the Congress to say, this is wrong. Today must be different. Today we must stand together against hate and not stand silent when white nationalists take to the streets of our cities. We cannot stand silent while armed vigilantes patrol our southern border. We must remember the Manzanar Committee declared 50 years ago that Manzanar should not just be a symbol of what is wrong with our nation, but that Manzanar should become a monument to our core values of democracy and civil rights. And today, we can honestly say Manzanar is such a monument. Our message is simple: speak out, demand equal justice under the law for everyone, no matter who they are or where they come from. Today, at the 50th anniversary of the Manzanar pilgrimage, we ask that you join us so that what happened here at Manzanar never happens again to anyone, anywhere. Thank you.